November 11th, it's around 6:30 p.m. We're gathered outside Victoria Park in London, Ontario for the Refugees Welcome in London, Ontario rally. And there's a good sized turnout considering the rain.
Alright, hello. Marhaba. Assalamu alaikum. Hello to everyone. We're about to start.
Good afternoon and thank you for coming despite the weather. As we know, people who seek refuge don't stop for weather and rain and snow, and neither shall we. At these events, we usually begin by acknowledging that what we're doing here today and everything we do takes place on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Attawandaron neutral peoples. And everything we do here is, all of us, the rest of us, are settlers in their land. So when we talk about new arrivals, we need to recognize that we're all, apart from the people that I mentioned, new arrivals. And the relationships between our nations and them, and the treaties between our nations and them, are fundamental to everything we do. And in that note, I'd like to begin. Tina, where are you? I'd like to begin by introducing a sister whose name is, Anishinaabe name is Mimis, and her settler name is Tina Stevens, bringing greetings not only as an Anishinaabe person, but also as Secretary of the London and District Labour Council, who brought us the sound system today, among other things. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, LDLC.
Yes, as David had mentioned, I am the London District Labour Secretary, as well as I'm an OPSU member, Local 102, and I'm the Secretary in the Area Council. I want to welcome everybody here today. It is such a good pleasure to be able to see so much in support of this particular important issue around this particular time. It's not only brought together concerned citizens, but as well brought citizens from the labour movement, as well as our community organizations for social justice. It's really important that we show our solidarity in regards to all refugees that are coming to this land of Canada. Not only am I here as a First Nations person to be able to welcome you and refugees from all across Canada, but as well as to be able to point out that there is such a discriminatory policy that Canada has against its First Nations people, and that when you look at the territories, more northern communities, it absolutely exemplifies the oppressive practices of Canadians living in first world and third world as class citizens in third world lands. And that's completely deplorable, and it goes against everything that Stephen Harper and his rhetoric that he's putting out today. One of the things that I have to do, bring you to attention, obviously he explores all of the realms and making sure that, Canada is the greatest in regards to being able to the acceptance of refugees into this country. And yet when you know and you acknowledge that most refugees go to the neighboring countries to be able to let in, and when you look at our statistics here in Canada, we absolutely are the 41st, not the first, like he would have everybody believe. Secondly, with respect to when you look at the refugees, obviously Canada takes a very discriminatory stance in all of its policies against people that are people of color, people of First Nations, and people of different cultural backgrounds. We have seen that, we've experienced that, and we've all been fully impacted by his decisions and his discriminatory words and speeches, as well as his cabinet ministers that have been removed. The Canadian government is profiting from wars, and that's absolutely shameful. And so that he can't sit on the fence saying one thing, that he's acceptance of all refugees, and yet he's in the full acceptance of being able to profit from wars. As well, with respect to when we look at the mass transformation, he absolutely is not making any movement in mass transformation of Canada, of making this country an inclusive country. And so when I hear his words, I just cringe because of the fact that he does not know what he is saying. He does not have the knowledge or the facts. And we do here, more locally in this community, have the facts than he's spouting off in the press. So one of the things, and a number of things that we should be taking a look at, is obviously making the status of refugees and immigrants more secure in this country. And that's making the pathways to permanent residence a lot more accessible for immigrants and persons who have been trafficked as well. Permanent residence for those sponsored spouses, and making it unconditional, as well as access, non-restricted access to Canadian citizenship, and making sure that in more broader efforts abroad that we make a better and more equal immigration and refugee system that is open to all and that can be easily accessible, as opposed to having a closed-door policy like the one that Stephen Harper has now. So ending off, and I again thank you for everybody that's held here in support of and these rallies and protests that are going on across Canada in support of refugees coming to Canada, and that we have to make sure that the access to essential health care for refugees is maintained, access to Canada's social safety net is maintained for those refugees that are entering Canada, and protection from exploitation for migrant workers as well. And finally, immigration detention has to be reduced to a minimum, and respect for non-citizens' fundamental rights to liberty and all of the liberties that Canadians have as people themselves. So again, I thank you very much for being able to speak.
Thank you, Tina, for that. Also, thank you to